Next, from Springfield, we attend a press conference where Representative Greg Harris is joined by several transgender people to discuss a bill that will allow trans people to change their gender on legal documents. This runs about 25 minutes.
Well, thank you for joining us today. My name is Ed Yohnka. That's Yohnka. I'm the Director of Communications and Public Policy for the American Civil Liberties Union of Illinois. And I am so proud to stand with these heroes today to talk about House Bill 6073 moving out of committee and onto the floor. This is a measure that modernizes Illinois' existing rule and law for correcting the gender marker on an Illinois birth certificate. And we're so proud to share with you some stories not only of how we're getting this work done, but why it's so important. So I want to start by introducing the chief sponsor of the bill, Greg Harris from Chicago.
Thanks, Ed. Again, Greg Harris, Representative 13th District. And I just want to thank all the folks behind me, the wonderful witnesses, who their personal stories this morning in committee, and we're going to share them again here. My co-sponsor, Representative Kelly Cassidy, also from Chicago, who are with us today. But in particular, I just want to talk about how important this bill is. I think most people don't realize that it was in 1962, over 50 years ago, that the state of Illinois really sort of led the way in changing its law so that transgender people could change the marker on their birth certificates. In the 50-some years since that law was passed, though, healthcare practice has changed substantially, and what we are doing today is updating statute to reflect current medical practice, to be sure that all the available health treatments and pharmaceutical options are available to folks who need them. The other thing that we're doing is being very sure that no fraud can occur, because in a post-9/11 era, a birth certificate is a core identity document. So we've also taken steps in this legislation to guarantee that there can be no fraud or abuse in the system. And I think it's good that Illinois is still in the lead, because we've seen in North Carolina and in other states legislatures trying to write discrimination and intolerance into the law. And in Illinois today, we took a big step to write inclusion and respect for each person and their dignity into the law. So it's a very good change. I'm looking forward to it going to the House floor and then to the Senate and then to the governor's desk. So we're going to have folks tell some of their stories about how it affects them in their everyday lives, and then we'll be available for questions. So I'll turn it back to Ed.
Before we hear those stories, I just want to give a moment, or allow a moment, for the co-sponsor, Kelly Cassidy from Chicago.
Thank you. Once again, Kelly Cassidy, State Representative of the 14th District in Chicago. And I can't put it any better than Greg did. What we're doing today, what we're working towards is bringing Illinois further to complete dignity and respect for everyone here and all of the people that we represent. And I think the witnesses who shared their stories today, first of all, were incredibly courageous and thoughtful in their presentations, but also tell the story better than anyone else about the importance of that full inclusion, and I am grateful to them for their work, and I'm happy to help with Representative Harris make this happen for them.
So you've heard a couple of references to this. I'll just say, for those of you who were in committee this morning, these stories you're about to hear really are the most powerful argument, I think, that anyone can make for this law. So I'm going to ask them to come forward, and we're going to start with Aaron Skorich.
Hello, my name is Aaron Nalia Skorich. That's AERYNSKORICH. Nalia is NIJLIA. I was born and raised in Illinois and have lived here all my life, the last 2 decades of which I have successfully done as the woman that you see before you, which is why it pains me that I have to be in front of you here today, because in order for you to understand my position, I am forced to rather publicly out myself. You see, I'm a woman who has a secret. My birth certificate says that I am not a woman. Because of Illinois' antiquated law, I cannot get the gender marker on my birth certificate amended to reflect the person that you see before you today. In my 42 years on this planet, I have been blessed with a long and interesting medical history. The most significant of these is my hemophilia and allergy to pain medications. I feel, because of the pain, that I can't take the pain meds, I feel that each and every ache, pain, and incision and stitch is because of my hemophilia and inability to take pain meds that surgery of any kind is not something that the state should be forcing me to subject myself to. I had a name and gender marker changed on my driver's license, financial documents, medical records, Social Security card, Medicare, and Medicaid. In Illinois, none of that matters, though. Every day that my birth certificate remains unchanged fills me with fear, anxiety, and dread. I am terrified that this fundamental document, which I cannot correct under the current law, can be used to purposefully misgender me and strip me of my identity, putting me at risk of harassment, hate, and violence. So I ask all of you, please support Bill 6073, and thank you.
Hello, my name is Maya Zimmerman, and I'm a transgender woman here to express my strong support of House Bill 6073. The bill, if it becomes law, would have a positive impact on my life and on the lives of thousands of transgender people across the state of Illinois. Having an accurate birth certificate is critical, and I would very much like to change the gender marker on my birth certificate. As part of my transition process, I've contemplated surgery. Indeed, I would like to have surgery. The reality is that it's not something I'm able to afford currently, and I do not know that I'll ever be able to afford it. My financial circumstances, however, should not be a roadblock to being fully recognized as a woman. I've been able to update my state ID so that it's accurate, but the fact that my birth certificate, that fundamental document, does not match my ID can cause confusion and even worse in those situations when one is asked to provide both forms of identification. I hope this bill will pass quickly. This small step forward, aligning Illinois policy to that allowed by the federal government and 11 other states, will make life a little easier for me and countless others today and into the future. Thank you.
Can you spell Maya and Zimmerman, please?
Oh, yes, Maya is M-A-Y-A. Zimmerman is Z-I-M-M-E-R-M-A-N.
Hello, my name is Elijah James Valentine. That is E-L-I-J-A-H. Valentine is V-A-L-E-N-T-I-N. I'm born and raised in Chicago, Illinois. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. Like each of you, I have several identities to family and friends: brother, son, grandson, Puerto Rican, Chicagoan, graphic designer, Buddhist, and countless other labels. For the purpose of this discussion, perhaps the most relevant identity that I am male, a transgender male. I've been living as a male for nearly 5 years. It is how I'm recognized by everyone whom I interact. I transitioned under the doctor's care at Howard Brown Health 3 years ago this month. As a part of that transition process, like so many others, I legally changed my name as well as my gender marker on both my driver's license and Social Security card. Now, changing my name was a breeze, all thanks to the help of Transformative Justice Law Program of Illinois. They walked me through the entire process, even went above and beyond to go with me to the DMV to change my driver's license. To change my gender marker on my license, I had to present a letter from the doctor stating that I'm transitioning from female to male. Despite all of these changes, my fundamental document, my birth certificate, remains unchanged. The reason, as you know, is that current Illinois law demands that I have surgery before I can change my gender marker on my birth certificate. I simply cannot afford this surgery, and even if cost was not a deciding factor, it is not clear that I would choose to have surgery given all the possible complications and difficulties that can result from any surgical procedure. That is why I urge the General Assembly to approve House Bill 6073. If this bill becomes law, I can change my birth certificate to match all my other documents, and I can then continue to focus on my career, my relationship, family, friends, Buddhist practice, and bettering this world. You have the opportunity today to keep Illinois on the path of respect and dignity for the lives of all its residents, including transgender Illinoisans. I urge you to approve this measure and keep Illinois moving forward. Vote in favor for House Bill 6073. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Alexandria Dinardo. It's Alexandria Dinardo. I was born and raised in Springfield, Illinois. First 17 years of my life, I spent an amazing time here. But unfortunately, because I was born male, my life became complicated. After that, I moved to the South, Louisiana, South Carolina, places where laws don't necessarily protect people like me, which caused my transition to cease. Meaning, people down there wouldn't give me my hormones that I needed. People down there wouldn't help me change my name. It's made my life horrible for the simple fact is I had to be forced to be somebody that I'm not. Moving back up here, this bill would mean that I can finally be me. I can finally say, I am a female. I don't have to worry about walking down the street and somebody, oh, you're a guy. Oh, you were never supposed to be a woman. First of all, it's not your prerogative. It's not your business. Second of all, I feel as though who I am should not be determined by a piece of paper. Legally, is it? Yes. Legally, my birth certificate does still say male. So therefore, the state identifies me as male. How is that fair to me or any other transgender individual that we are forced to be identified as something that we're not? In the end, I've been discriminated against by doctors, by nurses, saying that, oh, well, your birth certificate says male. Therefore, you're a male. I'm not going to call you a female. How do you think that makes somebody feel inside of a hospital where they're supposed to feel safe, secure, and they're there to get help? That makes their life so much more difficult because people like me who have anxiety problems, it does not make their life any easier. In the end, who wants to live a difficult life? In the end, who wants to live in fear of not being able to be themselves, having to be somebody else? No one, and it's not fair to anybody in the world. In the end, the bill would make life so much simpler, so much easier, and so much more meaningful to people because in the end, we are who we are, and we'll be able to be identified as who we are. I honestly believe this bill would make life so much easier, so much better, and honestly, my life would be a lot better. There would be no chance of discriminations, no chances of me being in fear every single day from doctors, from nurses, from people on the streets. Because in the end of the day, I'd be who I am. I'm female, and everyone would see that. Thank you.
Our final speaker is Dr. Magda Holberg from the Howard Brown Health Center in Chicago. Dr. Holberg.
Hi, my name is Dr. Magda Holberg, Magda Houlberg. I'm the Chief Clinical Officer at Howard Brown Health, located in the city of Chicago. I'm pleased to offer my support and Howard Brown Health's support to the passage of House Bill 6073, a measure that modernizes Illinois' policy for changing the gender marker on a birth certificate, bringing in the policy more in line with our current medical treatment and medical understanding. Since our founding in 1974, Howard Brown Health has provided healthcare services to a diverse population, including many transgender and intersex individuals. When we see patients and take care of patients and clients, we treat people as individuals, just as everyone here would want to be treated. And that includes discussions around treatment course and determination that's based on the individual's needs and the medical and behavioral health indications for those needs. This allows us to customize treatment for individuals without causing potential harm that a mismatch of gender identity or gender marker documents could cause to the individual. Those decisions, I feel, should be made with the patient and with the clinician in a partnership, and and should not adversely influence someone's gender marker documents. So this allows us to really align it with our current understanding of medical treatment and behavioral health treatment.
With that, we would open up for questions.
I
Yes.
mentioned to Representative Harris yesterday that he and I are almost old enough to remember George Jorgensen and Richard Raskin, who became Christine Jorgensen and Renee Richards. They were transsexuals. They went from one gender to the other. And now, as I understand it, you don't necessarily have that sort of transition. It's more, I grew up as Dave, but now I identify as a woman, please call me Denise. And I don't quite understand how that works.
Well, these are, very important life decisions that folks make. And as Dr. Holberg said, each one is made, just as decisions regarding healthcare should be, very carefully between the person and his or her physician. And there is a very lengthy process in being sure that people, understand and, wish to move in a certain direction. The standard that we're talking about, and I'll just point this out, is also the standard that is now used by the federal government to determine gender markers for U.S. passports. It has been adopted by the Social Security Administration for change of identity documents for Social Security cards, and by about a dozen other states. And right now, in Illinois, about 49,000 persons would be affected by this law. So, like all medical decisions, it's something to be made very carefully and deliberately and appropriately by a person and his or her doc.
And two of you were involved in civil unions and then same-sex marriage, and now it's the law of the USA. So that was kind of a years-long drive. Do you anticipate this being passed quickly, or will this be a similar extended education to fellow lawmakers?
Yeah, I think the world is moving very quickly, Dave, and I think people are doing the right thing. I mean, you saw in North Carolina where the legislature and the governor did like a really sort of hateful anti-trans bill, and immediately the Fortune 500 companies, the biggest employers in the state, said, whoa, this doesn't fit in with the values that even the business community wants in their state. So there's tremendous blowback. We saw in Indiana a year ago when they tried to pass anti-LGBT laws down there, how the community just rose up and said, this is not who we are. In America, we don't discriminate against anybody based on race or religion or gender identity or disability. It's just not what we do. So I'm hoping this moves very quickly.
Can I ask, what is is it a practical problem, or is it just?
It's a practical problem because the way the statute was written over 50 years ago references certain procedures, and we got to update it. So just as we have with, I'll give another example, as technology for detecting and treating breast cancer has evolved over the last couple decades. Words get in the statute that have to be changed so that you can talk about ultrasound or digital mammography or high-density digital mammography if the language in statute, referred to, a 50-year-old procedure. So that's what we're doing here. Same kind of thing.
Representative Harris, just moments ago, the governor of Mississippi signed a law allowing service denial to gays and transgender people. Do you feel this will be possible in the state of Illinois?
Well, in the state of Illinois, in 1975, we passed a law that forbids discrimination in the state of Illinois on housing, employment, or public accommodation for people with disabilities, against people based on race, gender identity. That's the way it should be. It's been that way in Illinois for 40 years, and I hope that's the way it stays. And in Mississippi, I said, you're turning back the clock. And I think especially for Mississippi, that brings back some pretty awful, thoughts.
The bill being dubbed the bathroom bill was moved to subcommittee, essentially maybe tabling it for now. Is that seen as a success for right now for younger trans youth who are dealing with these issues in their high schools and as they get older?
Well, there are different kind of concepts. What we're doing with this bill is to be sure that when people, get identity documents, and think about traveling, when you have to now even get on an airplane, you have to show an identification, and one of the items on your ID is a gender marker. If because of your base identity document, which is your birth certificate, the way you are presenting is different than your identity, it could cause you problems. So we're trying to address the practical problems that trans folks have in their everyday lives, so you don't have to go through and change each and everything individually and go through a whole bureaucratic rigmarole.
Can I'm trying to put a finer point on that, though. Are there, aside from you may not like being identified as a male if you feel you're a female, but are there also like really difficult practical problems as compared to just not having your preference expressed?
Well, again, I'll let Dr. Holberg talk about that, what she may have seen in her practice. She might be able to talk a little bit better than I.
So some of the practical concerns that we deal with are relate to the way that the society tends to segregate people based on gender. So if an individual, it can lead to issues around where someone is housed in an incarceration situation. It can lead to some very serious issues with employment discrimination as well, thus disclosing a transgender identity to a potential employer or a future employer in the process of obtaining a job, for example. So it actually can create problems in pretty much every aspect of one's life.
So having all the documents, in essence, having all the documents match up legally prevents a lot of problems from happening.
But at any point, could the medical provider say no? Just say no. We're not going to continue through this journey with you because of their feelings about the law at this point.
What this law does is it leaves the decision between the person and their healthcare provider. The bill does not require anyone to do anything.
Do you have any statistics, as an example? Is there a higher level of incidence of suicide within the transgender community? And if that is the case, would this alleviate some of those emotional issues?
I think so. I mean, anyone who has suffered discrimination, ostracism, who has been devalued by society, who has been treated as less than in their lives, and you see this particularly with youth. The incidence of youth suicide is very, very high among LGBT people because they are denied the very essence of their being, and they're told by society, you are subhuman, you're not as good as. So I think this is going to help a lot. I think it's going to help a lot when in just the activities of daily living, people don't have to worry about something as simple as having their ID being mocked because when they show their ID, it shows a different gender than the gender they are affirmed as.
Is there any, I don't see it, but I'm just asking it, are there any costs associated with this to society, aside from just changing documents?
Not that anyone's identified. The Department of Public Health, was very concerned that we did an amendment this morning in committee to be sure that questions of fraud and abuse were addressed. But other than that, I see no cost at all.
I think with these bathroom bills, for lack of a better term, people don't engender hate or they don't hate in our best selves. But there are people who occupy Illinois and who occupy some of your workplaces who say, I've got a real problem with using a public bathroom with me. And they might not be hateful people, but I mean, how do you navigate that?
I think that this problem is old as time itself, and society's made it through without showing your ID card at the door. I mean, if we go across the hall here, I think you'll have no problem getting in there. I've never been carded, either in here or in the bathroom on the House floor, and I hope that Illinois does not proceed down that road.
Eye contact, one stall buffer, it's all societal.
Well, if you promise to stay one stall away from me, Dave, I'll stay away from you. All right.
Any other questions? Thank you all very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Great.
You're watching the Illinois Channel. an independent nonprofit corporation formed to provide gavel-to-gavel coverage of Illinois state government and other public affairs events taking place across Illinois.